Hello, everybody. Are there any guidelines to this? Just I get the floor is yours. All right, well, my name's Tim Rudd, and I'm here to ask for your support to run for mayor on the Republican line. And how many of you think Ben Walsh has done a good job? How many of you voted for him? Nobody. Nice. I didn't vote for him either. Neither time. I don't think he's done a very good job. I think it's very obvious that he hasn't done a good job. I did, right? I mean, I passed, nobody has anything. Isaiah, this is my 21-year-old, Isaiah. He looks the least like me, but he's influenced me the most. Pass out my papers. Pass out my resume. But we live together most of the time. So he's a senior at SU, and an economics major, which is better than I was as a political science major. So I do want to say, to the extent you have hurt feelings about being a RINO, I don't mean it as an insult to Republicans. I really don't. I'm choosing to affiliate with the party. I think there's a lot of crossover in terms of the issues that are actually relevant for the city. And I've tried to document that in the most sincere way, which is words that I've written in the past, which is better than most politicians do because they get up here and they sing whatever song they think you want to hear. And I'm not going to do that. So I would like to point out that I do feel like the math of a citywide election in the city of Syracuse requires that you appeal to more than Republicans. So I think there's genuine overlap with the issues at play and my policy perspectives. And in order to win, you have to appeal to Democrats. And I'm risking a lot, right? Like I've given up, essentially, a good position where I could be paid to be quiet, right? And that's what a lot of people do. And I got 5 kids and everything on the line. And that's why I'm gonna win, because there's nobody else who's putting it all on the line, period. And so I hope you take the time and that you consider that in however you feel about me being a RINO, which is inevitably what somebody would have called me as someone who's been a Democrat, who chooses to change, especially when I can't win a primary, in large part with things I'm sure you agree with, which is like the Democratic Party has been taken over to a big extent by socialists, right? So I'm not for any of that, and I've pretty much documented that over time. I have bought 5 houses on my block, and I fix them, and I make them nice. They're not all perfect. Most of them are pretty nice. I have a carriage house in my garage where our nanny used to live, and where different people lived before that is now an Airbnb, and it's lovely. And when I first started to renovate my carriage house garage, I promise everyone thought I was insane. Why are you putting any money in this? You live in the hood. All this other stuff. Now, I make very reasonable money every month as an Airbnb. And honestly, it helps me raise my standard. Because I go, what does it take for somebody to want to live in this neighborhood? And too many people in the city don't look at the city with that kind of potential. I'm the only person running who was elected citywide when the mayor was elected. And frankly, I got more votes than Ben Walsh. Okay? The only person I didn't get more votes than was President Hudson. Okay? I attached some articles in the past. My getting hired as the budget director, it outlines that I was the most confrontational counselor with this mayor. Okay? One of the issues is good cause. Good cause is awful for Syracuse. I've been anti-good cause from the beginning. When I was on the council, a New York City housing advocate came up and asked us to pass a resolution to which almost every other counselor, including counselors who worked in development, said it's just a resolution, what does it matter? And I cut up a $20 bill and I talked about the economics of rent control and how it's a New York City policy that doesn't work in New York City and it's definitely not going to work here. And it got written about. You know, I sat with the DA and Fitzy made a joke to me about it because a number of people. But here's the deal. How much did I make as a city councilor? How much did I get paid? I left a very good job. I did this 8 years ago. I burned my boat, and I left a very good job in New York City where I was able to work remotely, and I did it to run for something that paid like $21,000. And then I did a bunch of other jobs, right? I cashed out my 401k, and I used it to buy the house in front of mine. It was a dump that I fixed up, right? And then I got a job teaching at MPH where I interviewed for an economics teacher job, and they said, oh, you're not the guy for economics, but we heard you play basketball. Would you be the JV basketball coach? And I said, yes. And I got to be, wherever Isaiah is, coach. And it was one of the best experiences of my whole life. Okay? And eventually, they gave me the economics job and the statistics job and a whole bunch of other stuff. And then it worked out that I got the transition. But well, you asked, cutting up the 20. Cutting up the 20. I was broke, right? I was hustling for money. I took that 20 that I cut up, and I put it in a cup. And I held on to it for more than a year. And when I needed to, I taped it together and I brought it to the bank. And they took it. So come get me, Kevin. Come get me. It's basically going 57 and a 55. You want to give me a ticket? Give me a ticket.
Wasn't that Joe Driscoll's 20?
I gave him a 20. But Joe Driscoll's a punk who would have voted for it, who doesn't understand it. So I did take his 20, and I took his 20 on purpose to make a point. And Joe Driscoll was conflicted because his sister works for the mayor, so he never was reliable, and that's why he was the whip formally, and I was the whip in practice. Because I whipped the majority leader by making him the whip. Think that through your little heads. It's like, I was the whip.
All right.
I don't mean little, but like, I'm just saying.
Do any of you have your little heads?
I'm sorry, little heads. I'm sorry, I'm animated, but like, whatever. Forgive me. I don't mean to be insulting. I really don't. Kevin, no.
Woody.
Let's keep Woody.
You're up.
Hang on.
Oh, Woody, you're up.
Okay, hang on.
I voted against the interior inspections for the rental registry. The only other one who I think that was Carney. I think I had a very functional relationship with Carney. We didn't agree on everything, but Carney was the last of the Republicans elected in the city, right? So he's holding on in an area that's very hard to hold on to. And I stood with him on a lot of things. And frankly, I had a much better relationship with him than I did with Joe Driscoll. So that's just the way it is. I ran 2 years ago, and I got slaughtered in the Democratic primary, which illustrates how I'm not appealing to the Democrats in a lot of ways. And I talked about how I was pro-development, I was pro-Ryan McMahon, even though I ran against Ryan McMahon 10 years ago. And even then, I tried to be respectful to him. I never did anything dirty. I never said anything dirty. I met to him to his face. I told him I was never going to do anything dirty. I ran 2 years ago when I ran, and I was pro-Ryan McMahon, to the point that Bill Kinney thinks I'm insane, because I basically told Bill Kinney I wasn't going to vote for him as a Democrat, because I thought Ryan had done a good job. Right, so I don't mean to be rude with the small head thing. That's just me talking. Forgive me. Yes.
Listen, I know you're riled up.
I am riled up.
The fact is this, hon, is that you can't come in and insult people.
I know, but that part, I don't mean.
Let her finish, all right?
You can't do that. You alienate
Everyone, I know, I'm sorry.
And you put down anything that you possibly have truthful to say. And then
That's
it just
true.
annoys everybody.
The little head thing, I'm really sorry for. That's like me, just a mistake. The RINO thing, I'm intentional about, and I hope you forgive me too. But the little head thing is a slip.
Woody, do you have any questions?
I got one question.
Woody,
How many jobs are you giving to the people in this room and the Republicans?
I'm not giving any jobs to anybody. I'm going to hire the best, which is what I hope you do. I hope you hire the best candidate for mayor. And I think I'm the best candidate for mayor. And I think that's what we don't do too often. We don't hire the best, and the city shows for it.
I've got a question. We're a sanctuary city. You get elected as
Well,
yes or no? The answer.
the truth is the way it is, I think the Walsh, that's one of the things I think he's got right, the way it is to be welcoming and to, here, I literally have it in here. Syracuse has always been and will be a welcoming city and proud refugee and immigrant resettlement community The Syracuse Police Department does not enforce federal immigration law, but we do support federal efforts to remove violent criminals from our streets. I think he got that answer right. I do think that to the extent the federal government changes the financial consequences of that equation, which they might do, there's like a fiduciary responsibility to take that into consideration, and you have to do what's responsible. And I am generally, I basically have proven myself to take the rules more seriously than everyone else. So I do think you have to enforce the rules to the best you do, because that's actually how you get pressure to change the rules.
Would you require a judicial warrant to turn a defendant over to ICE like the sheriff is doing? Yes or no? Would you require
I would have to
judicial
think
warrant?
about it more, and you could talk to me, Kevin, I would listen.
People that came illegally.
People here illegally who've committed crimes, would you require a judicial warrant to turn them over to ICE if there's a federal detainer request?
If they committed a crime and there's a request in there, I wouldn't go around asking, who are you? And who are you?
So do you agree with Toby Shelley's policy?
The truth is, I would have to learn more, and I'm open to listening on that issue. But the default, I think, is not, of all the priorities in Syracuse, I don't see that as the priority. I see a lot of other priorities, and that's not.
What are your priorities?
What are my priorities? Well, I do think, I have taken this RINO thing and made it respect, integrity, numbers, and ownership, which 2 years ago I ran basically Syracuse Now, which stood for numbers, ownership, and workforce. And so RINO, respect, integrity, is really to do with all that I have gone through recently and what I see as lacking in the city, right? So I think there's a lack of respect for the rules, there's a lack of respect for the council, there's generally a lack of respect across the board, and the city, it shows in the way everything is. So I think I would bring respect and integrity to the position, and then I do feel like I am the best with numbers. I'm good with numbers, I'm good with the math, with the finances, the projections. I feel very confident I could navigate how to close the budget deficit, that I would not need to close the budget deficit by dramatically increasing your property taxes. I think there's a number of programs that I know to be ineffective that I would cut. I would probably agree to some type of very clear, explicit, I'm not gonna, I don't think there's ever a need to raise the rate, the property tax rate. I think there's already gonna be, we have low property values to the extent they go up, that's more than enough, and I would probably agree to some kind of math cap on even that, because we've been very cute how the Walsh administration has raised taxes while saying we're not raising taxes.
You know what,
So,
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt one thing.
That's fair.
This is a question I have, and you have a history of podcasts where you record and post conversation. Are you recording this meeting right now?
yeah, I turned it on to record
Turn it
myself.
off.
So you're recording us talking